Can nonprofits get involved in politics? Is there certain things that you can and cannot say? I'm going to address those topics and a few other things when it comes to lobbying here in this episode. Well, welcome. I don't know what I was doing with my hands there. Welcome to the Nonprofit Missionary Podcast. We are here to help small and mid-sized churches become true missionaries to their community by establishing a faith-based nonprofit, securing funding so we can focus on long-term outreaches and impacting our community. My name is Ken McQuiller. I have been doing grant writing and fundraising for 6 years. Fundraising also a little bit longer than that as a missionary. So we're here to talk today about politics. And I know people tend to cringe when it comes to politics, but I wanted to talk about what is okay and what is not okay to talk about from a nonprofit perspective. So before we get into that, I want to give a quick nonprofit tip and also a ministry update. Let's switch it up and start with the nonprofit tip, shall we? So I want to talk today about the Google Ad Grant. So if you are a 501c3, you are eligible for $10,000 a month to use in Google Ads. If you just look up Google for nonprofits, you have the ability to get two very, very valuable tools. First is Google Workspace. I can talk about that at another point, where you have the opportunity to do like email, Google Drive, shared drives, all that stuff. We can talk about that at another point. But you can also apply for the Google Ad Grant. All you got to do is send them proof of your 501c3, or if you're part of a denomination, you have to send them your group determination letter, and you can get up to $10,000 in ad space. You know how when you are Googling anything, the layout is first now the AI Gemini response, and then there's always like those sponsored ads. You can have one of those spaces, and it can be so valuable as a way to get your name out there. We use it here for our nonprofit, and I'm getting almost 800 clicks a month just by people using it and looking at it and being like, oh, like this place exists, let me go check it out. So I want to encourage you, check it out. It's completely free to apply. The only stipulation is that you have to have like a click-through rate of 5% or higher. And if you follow all the steps, you'll easily get that. So Google Ad Grant, check it out. Google for nonprofits, nice and easy. So ministry update. I'm filming this on September 16th. And September's just been a really busy month. I don't know if that's just the case all the time with school starting up and all these meetings and such, but we've been rocking and rolling here. The coffee shop, we've officially turned one. I think I mentioned that in the last one, but if I didn't, yay. So it's been really cool to be here for a year. Still, I think one of the biggest things I'm still trying to figure out is staffing. So as a way to pray with us about staffing. I get questions all the time about, are you hiring? And I don't want to just hire someone off the street. I want to get the right person here that is passionate about, not just about coffee, but about changing the community. So yeah, that's a little bit about our ministry. I don't want to do a big teaser, but I might have something next week. Either way, I'll probably have some type of update next week, because I always do. So that was our very brief ministry update. Now let's talk about politics. I know it's everyone's favorite topic. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this here is because it is election season coming up. And there's always a lot of noise. I mean, I said this before, I'm filming this on the 16th, watching the Browns game, and the news crawl, breaking news comes up that there is potentially another assassination attempt on Trump. And I know like social media has been going crazy with the debate. There's been a lot of local Ohio stuff with cats and Haitians and all. And I just wanted to get on here and answer the question, what is allowed when it comes to a nonprofit? What are you allowed to do and what are you not allowed to do? So how I'm going to kind of break this down is, first I want to tell you what I do, and I'll tell you kind of why I do things the way I do, and then I'm going to tell you what the IRS says. And I'm going to read it straight from the IRS's website. Maybe I'll even post a picture in here if I'm feeling cute or fancy about it. But let's start with what I do. For me, I don't mention political stuff at all. And I know that I don't necessarily need to do that, but for me, it's the easiest way to make sure I'm above reproach. Like the line is here and I am as far away from it as possible. Make sense? I feel like no matter who you vote for or no matter which side of the fence that you're on, people always get upset. And for me as a missionary, I have friends that are very extreme liberal and very extreme conservative. They're very extreme Democrat, they're very extreme Republican. And if I am actually a registered independent, so it makes it easier to kind of say that. Like, if I say, hey, I'm an independent, like, it doesn't make it, it makes it easier for me to satisfy both sides of the aisle. Not just for the fact of, ooh, like I want to appease everyone, because I'm not going to appease everyone. There's going to be people that are mad that I'm not fully taking a side. So, but I think for me, from a fundraising perspective, there are people that would stop funding me if I made a stance either to the left or to the right. And I don't want to risk that, and not even so much for myself, because I know God will provide and everything like that. But I don't want to risk that for the people that we're trying to serve. And for me, I just completely stay out of it. Actually, a couple days ago, it's like the third Saturday in a row, I had someone knocking on my door while the kids were napping. So already I'm annoyed, because like that time is like time to relax, time to clean up something in super mode. And this dude is knocking on the door and he's asking me who I'm voting for. And then I tell him very respectfully, I don't like to discuss politics with people. And then he goes on, he said, yeah, like a lot of your neighbors, they're voting for Kamala, so that's like a good thing for you, or still trying to like feel me out. And I say, once again, I don't discuss politics with people. For me, and that's not even so much because like for the legal reasons, I just don't necessarily like talking about it. I think number one, I feel like I'm not fully informed enough to like actually have a intelligent discussion. If you want to talk sports, fine. If you want to talk about nonprofits, get writing, fine. If you want to talk about the Bible, fine. Politics, I don't really know enough about. And so that's part of it. But then also, it doesn't matter if you have an intelligent response on either side. If someone doesn't agree with you, more than likely they will get upset. And I don't need to deal with that. So I don't necessarily talk about politics. And that's not saying that you don't have to. However, you have to be careful in how you frame what you're talking about when it comes to political stuff. Because there are regulations put in as a 501c3 organization. And if you're new to this podcast, welcome. But also, if you don't know what 501c3 means, the 501c3 designation means that, number one, all of your income that comes in is not taxed. So if you're getting a donation, if you're getting a grant, if you're getting corporate sponsorship, that money is not taxed to your organization. Unlike if you were an LLC or a sole prop or a corporation, if you have $5,000, you're getting taxed as like business excise tax or whatever it's called. So you don't get taxed for it. And also with a 501c3 organization, anyone that donates cash to you can also deduct that on their taxes. So I know it's going to sound weird saying donation when it comes to a church, but let's say someone gives a $500 offering to your church. The church doesn't get taxed for that $500, and the person that donated that $500 will get a receipt at the end of the year saying that they donated that, so that they can deduct that off of their taxes. So if they made $50,000 in the year, and that's the only donation they made, their taxable income would be $49,500 as opposed to $50,000. Nice and simple. So because there is that in place and it's very useful, it qualifies you for a lot of different things. Also in the church world, your church does not have to pay property tax, and ministers also have housing allowance. There's a lot of like tax things in there. And so I don't know if it's just like, because it's not just churches, it's any 501c3 organization. So I want to make that clear. I think it's to try to avoid any conflicts of interest and dualities here. The IRS has some pretty clear regulations when it comes to lobbying. So I'm going to read this over here. Once again, straight from the IRS's website, not anybody else. In general, no organization may qualify for Section 501c3 status if a substantial part of their activities is attempting to influence legislation, commonly known as lobbying. A 501c3 organization may engage in some lobbying, but too much lobbying activity risks loss of tax-exempt status. Legislation includes action by Congress, any state legislator, any local council, or similar governing body with respects to acts, bills, resolutions, or similar items, such as legislative confirmation of a point of office, or by the public in referendum, ballot initiative, constitutional amendment, or similar procedure. It does not include actions by executive, judicial, or administrative bodies. An organization will be regarded as attempting to influence legislation if it contacts or urges the public to contact members or employees of a legislative body for the purpose of proposing, supporting, or opposing legislation, or if the organization advocates the adoption or rejection of legislation. I know this is long. One more paragraph, here we go. Organizations may, however, involve themselves in issues of public policy without the activity being considered as lobbying. For example, organizations may conduct educational meetings, prepare and distribute educational materials, or otherwise consider public policy issues in an educational manner without jeopardizing their tax-exempt status. So I know that was a mouthful, and I know you could just Google it, but I wanted to say it very plainly because it's not just coming from me. I'm now going to kind of spin this in how can we navigate this? How can we interpret this? There's a few things that I wanted to point out. First of all, never try to bully people into voting in a particular way. Not only does it not work, but it can also endanger your status. Let's say there's a congregation member or there was someone in your nonprofit that was like, I'm voting for this person, and you want them to vote for the other person. You can't, first of all, you can't fire them because that's gonna be a whole lawsuit thing. But also it just doesn't work. No one ever has changed their mind based on bullying tactics or making someone feel bad for who they're voting for. So you can't really just tell people like, well, you know, if you want to keep working here, you have to vote for Kamala, or you have to vote for Trump, or you have to vote for this specific issue, because it's not just voting for people, but it's also voting for issues. I'll get to that in a little bit. So that's number one. You can't bully people into voting in a particular way. Number two, you've got to keep your political talk limited. Pastors, don't start a 6-week sermon series on why you should vote the way you should vote. You don't want everything that you're doing to be considered lobbying. Once again, this isn't saying that you can't do it, period. You have to keep it limited. So if you want to talk about it in a sermon, just keep it limited. Don't make it the whole thing. If you want to try to talk to your legislative body, whether it's your state senate, your U.S. senator or House of Representative, whoever it may be, your county representatives, your city or town representatives. You can do that. You just can't do it excessively. Like if you're the executive director, 70% of your time can't be lobbying and talking with political figures to try to influence laws, because that's where you can get into trouble. So keep it limited. Number 3, you want to educate more than anything else. The best way that you can avoid any issues with tax-exempt status is not saying vote for somebody or vote for something, but tell people why they should vote and why they should vote a particular way. What would be the effects of that? So I want to give a couple of examples here, because I feel like that makes it a little bit better. And I want to use locally here in Ohio, because last year it was a huge deal. Issue 1 was one of the amendments that we were voting on when it came to the state constitution. So a vote for yes on issue 1 means that the state would add an amendment to the Constitution to make abortion a human right, I think is the way that they phrased it. I don't remember the exact phraseology, but basically, if you vote for yes, there is a state amendment to the Constitution making abortion legal, period, in Ohio. Whereas a vote for no left it up to the policymakers and whoever. So they could still create laws that say that abortion is legal, but they could also overturn those laws and everything. So this was on our ballot last November, and it was a very big deal. I saw signs all over the place. Every other commercial on YouTube was about issue 1. It was a huge deal. Ohio ended up voting yes, 56% yes, 43% no, point something on each of those. I don't remember the exact. So let's say a pastor is passionately pro-life, and they wanted to encourage their congregation to vote no on issue 1. What they could not do is say, hey, congregation, if you truly love Jesus, you need to vote issue 1 no. You want to vote no on issue 1. That would not be okay. That would be considered lobbying. That would be trying to influence legislation, especially from a pulpit when you're saying you should do this or you shouldn't do that when it comes to voting. It's going to be seen very significantly as lobbying. What they can do is say, this is what would happen if we voted yes for this. This is what would happen if we voted no for this. And then at the end, you don't even have to say leave it up for yourselves, but kind of leave it up to yourselves and you make the decision. So, kind of in the same way, you can talk about politics. This doesn't say you're not allowed to talk about politics as a 501c3. How you talk about politics is important. Let's say move it up to this year. Don't tell people who to vote for, plainly. Or if you say voting for Trump or voting for Kamala is the right or the wrong thing to do, whatever. Educate people and guide them on what the right choice is for them. To me, the biggest thing I always say is it's important to get out there and vote. And I haven't fully decided this yet. I don't know if I'm going to be open on election day or not, but and I've seen other places do this, that if you vote and you have the sticker and you have proof of it, I'll give you a free coffee that day. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not sure if I'm doing that or not, but it's important to educate people instead of just telling them, especially as a 501c3. So let's say you have some kind of community nonprofit. If you want to tell people about who to vote for, you can have an open forum and just let people come in and have a discussion on the issues. You just can't say, this is who you should vote for, and that's it. Give them the education, give them the resource, and let them make the decision. So, yes, you cannot, and let me rewind here. The other thing that's important to note with the IRS regulations, it's talking about a specific bill or law. So you can tell people, like, we should vote for things that help this cause area, especially if it's something that is part of your nonprofit. So if you're like, hey, we want to vote for things that help further education or provide more access to education, or whatever it might be. I mentioned issue 1 a couple of minutes ago. If it has something to do, if your nonprofit has something to do with like babies or something like that, or with women, like talking about it in a general term is not going to impact your 501c3. But when you're talking about a specific bill or a specific law, that's where it comes in. And also if you're talking about a specific person getting voted into office, that can also get you in trouble. So keeping it vague and letting people make the decisions is the most important thing. So just kind of keep that in mind. So that wraps up kind of our main segment here. I wanted to talk about Confessions of a Missionary. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit kind of on the same lines of politics. Because as a missionary, something that I try to do as a way to just continue to connect with people. Also, it gives me good talking points for when I see someone in person. I follow a lot of people on Facebook, especially older pastors. A lot of them are on Facebook. Some on Instagram, but not, and I don't know if I follow anybody. I think a couple people I support on TikTok, but like primarily Facebook, a little bit of Instagram. And I would just say I wish that more people acted like politics was more like sports. And I'll explain that in a second. I see people from both sides. I see people that love Trump and hate Trump. I see people that love Kamala and hate Kamala. I see a lot, and it is very, very rare that I say anything on social media about politics. And part of it, like I said before, is I don't want to get someone upset and lose their support when I could have just kept my thoughts to myself. To me, it's just not worth it. But I feel like so many people have a very one-track mind when it comes to politics. And to me, the political landscape is so nuanced that nobody fully understands it. People are more about being divided instead of seeing some of the common ground and seeing that most things, like, people want the same results. People want a better world. The question is how you're getting there. And like so often, if two people disagree, yes, sometimes you can see that agree to disagree and move on. I'm glad that you talked about it and everything like that. But sometimes, most of the time, it's not the case. And that's why I say people should act like it's sports. I have a ton of friends that don't like the same sports that I do. When it comes to sports teams, I should say. I have a lot of friends that are Red Sox fans, and I pray for them daily. But we can disagree about the teams that we root for. By the way, I'm a Yankees fan too. We can disagree about it, but then we still can be friends about it afterwards. We can have passionate discussions about who's the best basketball player ever, the best football player ever, and still have respect for one another. And that's what I hope for with politics. I wish that people would spend less time getting upset at people that they don't agree with, and more time trying to understand why they believe that. And also be more willing to just say, yeah, I don't agree with you, but we can still be friends about it. we can still respect one another. And part of that also is the way that people post. I understand that there's a lot of very emotionally charged things with politics. And I understand that people feel very passionate about a particular candidate, a particular political party, particular issues at hand. But remember, you're not just posting as a thing for yourself. You're posting for the public to see you. People see who you are and what you do. And most people will believe who you say that you are. And you don't want to alienate people based on your beliefs. So, I don't know. I wish people acted that politics was more like sports where, yeah, it stinks when my candidate doesn't win, and it's annoying when people are annoying. But we can still respect each other in the end. Yeah, the Yankees beat the Red Sox beat the Yankees. Yes, I will send memes and GIFs when the Yankees win, and I will get memes and GIFs sent back to me when they lose. But in the end, we still have that mutual respect for each other. So I want to encourage you with that today. Go send someone a funny meme. Not a politically charged meme, but just something where you guys can laugh about it and have a good time. So until next time, this is Ken McQuiller. We will talk to you about another topic next week. So God bless.